Um, Good morning and welcome to today's edition of the ETRAGE webinar series. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Shaish Ambore, and I'll be taking you through today's webinar. We typically host different topics within the design and manufacturing industry twice a month, and you can find our future webinars at etrage.com under events. Now, a few housekeeping items. Number one, everyone is muted, and so if you have a question, please use the Q&A icon in the UI. And if we're not able to answer your question during today's session, we will follow up with you afterwards as well. And also, recording will be available of this webinar on our ETRAGE YouTube channel later in this week. So here's a quick look at our agenda, and we'll do a quick introduction into ETRAGE and who we are. And then I'll discuss what's a Windchill upgrade, why is it needed, what does it entail, and then any additional FAQs as well. And then finally, we'll wrap it up with some questions. So again, you could type your questions into the Q&A portion of the webinar screen. Yep, and then we'll get to them at the end. All right, so a little bit about me. Like I said, my name is Shaish Ambore. I'm a senior technical lead here at ETRAGE. I've been working with Windchill and PTC products now for over 12 years, right? And my goal, my joy is to, help customers, use CAD and PLM efficiently, right? Now about ETRAGE. So ETRAGE specifically, we're a global company, right, with over 20 years of expertise in helping customers, adopt PLM throughout the enterprise, ensuring that we can address any gaps in infrastructure to ensure different stakeholders from engineering to manufacturing to inspection to quality and purchasing and the service, etc., can all see and utilize PLM data, right, and have that digital thread throughout the entire enterprise. And so again, our goal is to enable enterprise-wide PLM adoption, right, through our specialized software and services to streamline integration, boost efficiency, and ensure compliance, and ultimately the end goal of delivering strategic value for our customers. And so we do that through a variety of our products and services that we offer, right? Some of our custom products include, our ETRAGE, viewers and publishers for Windchill, our document management system, our bulk loaders for, primarily to assist in Windchill migrations and or, M&As and acquisitions, right? And then our, just to name a few products, and then our services usually around, Windchill, app development, cloud hosting, training services, as well as almost anything under the sun, Windchill related with our custom services as well, right? And in addition to, I should also mention CAD and Creo training, right, included in the Windchill services as well, right? And then we work with anyone and everyone really, right? So small, medium, and large companies, right, that design and manufacture products. And we find a consistent theme with who we work with is, the companies who need a complete, end-to-end digital thread of their product and engineering processes, right? But it shouldn't just live within product and engineering; it should spread throughout the entire organization, right? And that's the character of customers we find that are successful, with ETRAGE. All right. And again, with regards to our service staff, right? We have 20 plus years of Windchill app development experience, right? And we have, over 30, plus staffers, both, within the US, but also internationally as well, with, almost 20 years of, cloud hosting experience as well, right? And so, again, we have the expertise to take your company, to the next level when it comes to spreading PLM, data, within the enterprise. All right, so all that being said about intros, now we'll dive into the meat of the presentation here. So first off, it's going to be, we're talking about what is a Windchill upgrade, right? And so a Windchill upgrade, before I talk about that, right, I'll step back, a little bit, and first off, just discuss, what is Windchill to begin with, right? Oftentimes, from a high level overview, which this is going to be, people just understand you have a CAD client, whether it's, Creo or SolidWorks or pick, whichever CAD system, usually Creo in most cases, connects to a gigantic black box called Windchill, right? And Windchill does magical things, right? Well, if we peel back the layer a little bit and look at, okay, well, what is Windchill, right? Oftentimes you'll find there is, a database, right? And that database, has, stores data in some storage, containers or buckets, right? And linking all that together is an app server or a web server, right? Which serves the web pages, for Windchill, right? But then there's also, sometimes usually a CAD worker, right, that creates the viewables and the thumbnails, right, for the CAD data. And then there, depending on the size of your organization, you could have a replication server, right? And again, whether if it's a big enough company, you could have, again, multiple replication servers, right? Multiple CAD workers, depending on volume of CAD data that's being checked in, and multiple storage buckets as well, right? And all of this is not even talking about any enterprise directory servers like a Microsoft Active Directory or email servers, right? To email plug Windchill into email events within Windchill to specific users or roles within the organization, right? So again, point being, this box looks cluttered as is, and this is just a high level overview, right? So the point being, whenever you do a Windchill upgrade, right? All these different elements here are getting touched and affected, right? And so, functionally speaking, a Windchill upgrade is installing, right, configuring, and implementing a new and updated Windchill software build, right? Again, making sure that we keep and maintain your existing configurations, right, or and also customizations you have on the Windchill side, right? But functionally, everything gets touched within a new way, right? With a new fresh install, right? And so it involves, Windchill software license reconfiguration, right? A new Windchill software install, right? Setting up publishers and replication servers, right? ERP and other enterprise-wide PLM solutions that need to connect to Windchill, right? Again, depending on the customer. A database upgrade, an app server upgrade, plus any Windchill customizations as well, right? And so it really touches, anything and everything within the entire PLM system. Now, why is it needed, right? This is the next question we get often. And the way we'll approach this is, oftentimes the first and one of the major reasons why it's needed is from the CAD client perspective, right? So if you have, say Creo, for example, and as a customer, I'll flip over here to this chart where you can see the compatibility roadmap between Creo and Windchill, right? And so on the vertical column is Creo versioning, and horizontally is Windchill versions, right? So if you have your current customer, say for example on Windchill 9 and using with Creo 9 and using Windchill 12.0, then currently you're compatible, right? But if you want to upgrade to your Creo to Windchill into Creo 11, right? All of a sudden, Creo 11 is not compatible with Windchill 12.0, right? Meaning you'll not be able to use any of your existing PLM data, in Creo 11 if you do just a Creo upgrade, right? And so then that means you also then have to upgrade Windchill, right? And to whether it's 12.1 or 13.0 or something like that, right? In order to then make sure that Creo 11 can still access your Windchill data, right, in a future Windchill build, right? So this is again one of the reasons why an upgrade is needed, right? Now I should mention, by the way, that again as of this recording, Windchill 12.0, I think the 2.20 maintenance build support just ended for that, right? And also 12.1, the support build 2.11, right? In standard support just ended for both of those. And there are 2 more maintenance builds currently scheduled, right, for release through the end of November/early December for the 12.0 and 12.1 softwares. But ultimately, anything older than those flavors of Windchill will be off standard support, right? So yeah, and so now it's it's good of a time to if you're on those versions or earlier, to take a look at an upgrade, because ultimately now or in the very near future, in the next few months, right, those options will softwares will be off standard support, right? Now another reason as to why a Windchill upgrade is needed is going to be, I'll flip back to this slide for a second. It's usually going to be operating system end of life, right? And so oftentimes that's where take for example Microsoft, right? So if this is on a Microsoft server, right, your Windchill installation, oftentimes when you're reaches its end of life, right, IT does not feel comfortable supporting that anymore, right? And so an IT initiative would then be, okay, let's upgrade this, right? And if the OS gets upgraded, then usually that means a fresh Windchill install, right? And so that's again a case where you'd see a Windchill upgrade, and then the final one, which we see less often, but again it's still a possibility, right? It's usually again the database again gets to its end of life, right? And the database is now incompatible with Windchill, right? Or the the database itself from the vendor is no longer supported, right? And so those are usually the 3 main reasons why we see a Windchill upgrade being done. Now when it comes to the next question you usually get, it's oftentimes, okay, well, what does it entail, right? To do a Windchill upgrade, right? And oftentimes that means every one of these items in this screenshot here gets touched, right? Now in this example here, this could be several disparate systems, or your setup could be monolithic in the sense that many of these functions are being provided on one server, right? But essentially it's still the same thing, right? All these different systems get touched, right? So what it entails is we collect existing information about your current Windchill installation, right, including database status, user profiles, any existing configurations, right, hardware you're using, the OS, disk space, and then we also so we get everything about your current state, right, and then we also then look at your future state. So what Windchill version would you like to get to, right? And then from that, we game plan a recommended upgrade path, right? Again, based on source and target versions, and give you, essentially a plan for how you can approach the upgrade, right? And we typically offer this at no cost to you, right? This is a service we usually offer for customers, and at that point, you can then make the decision on whether or not to go ahead with the upgrade with us. Right? And then the next question is oftentimes, well, if we say yes, you want to go ahead with the upgrade, well, what's the upgrade process like, right? And so what we do is we clone your production environment, right? And from that clone, we then go ahead and do a pilot upgrade, right? Where we try and upgrade the entire system, and we run into any difficulties or any issues, as oftentimes there always will be, right, with the Windchill upgrade. We take steps to resolve them, and we also then document what steps we took to resolve those issues, right? And once we're able to get the full upgrade completed, in the pilot environment from end to end, right, and we do a test of that, then we schedule a production upgrade, right? Usually it's a weekend, but we can plan this around any company scheduled downtime or holidays or things like that, right? We schedule the production upgrade with you. And during that time, we take Windchill down and do the entire upgrade from end to end, again, using everything we learned, right, from the pilot as a guide to navigating the entire, production upgrade. And our goal is to just essentially make sure that there's minimal downtime, right, for the enterprise, and that your users can come in Monday morning at 8 a.m. and be able to use Windchill as usual, right? And then we also then follow this with a post-upgrade support as well, right? Again, to ensure that we can enable end users and address any last-minute issues that pop up. And so again, functionally it's similar to like, if you have like a coffer dam in this case, that's in the middle of an actively flowing river, right, where you want to build an existing, I guess a new, dam or infrastructure, right? But you need to create kind of like a pilot space, right, where the building can take place that's not underwater, right? And at some point, when that building is completed, right, the coffer dam is released and the water flows in and accommodates into the new infrastructure like usual, right? And so that's kind of the mirror process, like to think about analogically, right? Next question we oftentimes get is, well, how long does this upgrade take? And the answer to that oftentimes is it depends, right? Again, that's one of the things we will communicate to you when we do that initial system evaluation. It could take anywhere from, we think, 2 weeks in the low end to 6 weeks in the high end, right? Oftentimes depends on how many different servers you have, your Windchill system as a whole, how many different customizations you have, how complex it is, right? So there's many different factors that play into how long does it take, but usually say 2 to 6 weeks, we can handle most upgrades, right? And then the next question we oftentimes get from customers is that, isn't this included in, with my Windchill subscription fee that I pay to PTC annually, right? And the answer for that is kind of a yes and no, right? And so the software license, right, is included, right? So your Windchill licensing subscription fee, enables you to use the Windchill software, right, with the license. But the installation, the configuration, including any required software and hardware dependencies, right, being set up properly, all of that is what, our 20+ years of Windchill experience allows us to do, right, for you, right, the upgrade. Right? And then the next question then is, is an upgrade needed if there are any, bug fixes or critical security patches, right? And the answer to that is not necessarily, right? And that's specifically what that means is if you're, a customer that's currently active on maintenance with PTC, then you get access to what the PTC, essentially they call it CPS patches or any future maintenance bills, right, for free. And a CPS just stands for a critical patch set, right? So if there's any critical security issue or flaw that's in a version of Windchill that's patched by PTC, they'll issue that in a CPS or later maintenance build, and those you can install in place, without having to do a full upgrade. All right. So that being said, that's a lot of the frequently asked questions we oftentimes get when it comes to a Windchill upgrade. I hope we will address everything for you here. At this point, I'll pause here and switch over to Q&A. So if you guys have any additional questions, we'll address them at this time. So again, you can type your questions into the Q&A portion of the screen, and we'll go ahead and address them here. Okay. I guess first question just came in here is, how often is a Windchill upgrade recommended? And that is, it's not oftentimes, again, it's not something that is always recommended unless, again, there's a compelling event, that means it should be done. Like, for example, in the case of, whether it's a Creo upgrade or, OS, end of life issues or things like that. So it's oftentimes not something that is typically recommended unless, unless, you're running on, extremely old and outdated, Windchill software versions for which there's no current support for example, right? Okay. And then the next question is, it says the matrix for Creo Windchill compatibility looks different than what's on the PTC support page. So oftentimes, yes. So that oftentimes, it usually depends on, when a particular screenshot was, was grabbed, and also, generally speaking, the way we like to say it is the data in terms of what's currently an active, support versus what's, off support, or off standard support with PTC changes, almost on a daily or weekly basis, as they go through their product development cycle, right? And so really it's oftentimes, that's why I have, the link in the slides here, that you can always view the PTC product calendar to see, okay, well, what Windchill versions are currently on active support, and which ones of those support, which Creo builds. So that way you can make a more informed decision, right? Again, this particular webinar is one snapshot in time, right? It's not, it doesn't govern, everything in terms of, what's, compatible with Creo versus Windchill, right? Okay. And then another question I see on here is, someone says, I'm still running Windchill Intralink. Can I upgrade and stay on Intralink? And the answer to that is no, because Intralink is specifically, very old and no longer supported, piece of software, right? And so we can do an upgrade, right, for you, but that would involve, migrating your data from Intralink to, Windchill PDM link, whether it's a 12.1 or 13.0, whichever one of the more current versions are, and then going from there, right? So no, you can't do an upgrade and stay on Intralink. You can do an upgrade, and that will involve migrating you from Intralink to PDM link, and then upgrade from there. Okay. And then another question that came in here is, if you've heard of failed upgrades, is that still an issue? Because that's something you heard in the past. And for that, oftentimes I'll say, that with in terms of an upgrade, right? There are, again, like I think I mentioned in the pilot, process, there are issues that pop up as to why the upgrade may not be successful, right? And that's number one, the reason why we clone your production environment and do a pilot off of that, right? So we're working with your data and your customizations, and not a blank vanilla box that may not apply to you, right? That's why number two, we test the entire upgrade in the pilot, right, and make sure that it works end to end seamlessly, right, before we schedule a production upgrade, right? But also number three, and that's the reason why, again, with our 20 plus years, experience with Windchill, oftentimes we've seen many different edge cases that we can, more easily work around, right, to mitigate a failed upgrade. And also number two, I guess I forget. I've lost count already. But also, there are cases in an upgrade where there may not be a readily available fix, and in that step, we can file a ticket with PTC, right, on your behalf to say, hey, here's the issue with the particular upgrade at a particular point in time, and PTC will then look into that, and they can then offer a fix for that as well, right? And so sometimes it might be any issue encountered that PTC might need to step in and fix, right? And then when they offer a fix for that, then you can proceed ahead with the upgrade, right? Right. Okay. See here. All right. So those are all the questions that we see on here that we'll go ahead and address right now. If you have any other questions we're not able to get to, we will make sure to follow up with you by email. And that is everything, right? Thank you so much for joining this week's edition of the ETRAGE webinar. Again, we appreciate your attention, and we look forward to seeing you on a future webinar. Right, thank you.